I'm Scoop Sanderson. I'm the Main Street Gazette reporter. I love walking in Walt's footsteps.
Okay, so now we're recording. So this is going to be Holland talking about different types of pins and how they're made, kind of picking up from last time. If you didn't catch last time, it is on YouTube on the Scoop Spins channel, and you can catch up. He did real cloisonne and semi-cloisonne. So now we're going to try and get him to talk to us about soft enamel and the acid etching, epoxy domes that turn yellow. And I have I'm going to spotlight over here. And then we've got all kinds of examples of different types of pins on here. So which type would we like to start with, Holland? Because I can show off whatever we want to show off. Because I've got, these are all synthetic types. And then this is a soft enamel with an epoxy dome on, I'm not sure whether that's going to be
is this your good camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they showing okay?
Now it's being recorded.
Okay, and this has an epoxy dome. So does this.
Yep,
it's in yellow. I can pull off any of these or zoom in.
Well, let's look at the I'm trying to just think which would be earliest. So let's look at that. Let's look at the Aladdin pins.
These?
Uh-huh.
Okay. No, I can actually keep this close. Okay.
So let's give them a side view of it so you can see the epoxy dome. Whenever you have what looks like a bubble on a pin, that's called an epoxy dome. It's clear epoxy.
And it has a dome. This is very lightly domed.
Right. And I think this is an acid etched pen. So did I talk about acid etching at all?
No, you didn't.
All right.
Actually.
So
I'm going to stick this on its own board.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. So I think this is acid etched. Acid etched is usually on brass.
It is on brass. Do you want to see the back of it?
Yep. It's a thin piece of brass. So we discussed that high quality pins, older pins, were die struck into copper, and then they're filled with the enamel. In the case of these that I just showed you, it's these are sculpted, I think.
These are very flat and hardly any depth at all on the Aladdin.
Right. Hold on. I'm going to look at this pin. Yeah, this is sculpted.
I'm going to spotlight you.
All right. So when they're sculpted, they have a beveled edge. I think you can see that, right? The edge is not square. It tapers towards the face of the pin. So these are the ones that are molded. That's how basically everything is made now. This has actually a lot of heft to it, this pin, surprisingly. And so they are minted like a coin and then hand-filled with the syringe, either with a thin layer of enamel, which is soft enamel. And with soft enamel, you could go in and scratch that enamel with a tack or something, and it would scratch the enamel out of there and reveal base metal underneath it. If you were to do that to hard enamel or most pins, you would just scrape out some of the enamel. The color would still be there. It would just have a scratch in it. Just like if you scratch paint off a car. Well, this is more like if you scratch paint off a car, actually. So with the acid etched, they use brass for the base metal. I don't see a lot of pins made like this anymore. And
I think there are a lot of the old cast member pins and like giveaway pins from the older early 2000s or before.
Yes. When they so a void has to be created to be filled with enamel. With acid etched, they do the graphic lines. I think of these as like comic books because comic books have black outlines and you color them in, right? And with pins, it's kind of the same thing, only the lines get whatever color they're going to have after they've been enameled. So with the acid etch on the brass, they put the graphic on almost like a Xerox. It's I actually don't know how they do it, but they will cut out the shape just like they do with the other pins with a die that we saw punch out the bus pin last week, and then they put the graphics on in black, and then they give it an acid bath, and that erodes or corrodes away the exposed metal where there is no graphic, creating a small dip where they can fill it with enamel. So that's what you've essentially got there with that Aladdin pin.
And and it's soft enamel?
Typically, yes. And then to protect it, they put the epoxy dome on top of it. Disney did have older pins that I guess I'll show you when I find them sometime. And there is one on eBay. I'm going to try to snatch up if somebody else doesn't, but nobody knows what it is, and so nobody cares. But it's a little brooch back pin. It's one of the early ones. And by early, I mean probably maybe 60s, 70s. The pins go all the way back to the 20s, late 20s, early 30s. So anyway, the acid etched was a real cheap way to make pins. And you really don't see them like that much anymore. I'm just trying to see what I've got handy here. I don't think
and the epoxy domes end up turning that yellowish color, which
correct.
If the epoxy dome came off, the pin itself underneath would still be the true colors, correct?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't think it's gonna come off.
No, I don't think it would come off.
I have seen an epoxy dome lift. There was a Tinkerbell Ambassador, a beautiful little pin, Ambassador Hotel pin from like New Year's Eve 2000 or something, and the dome, it got too hot, I think, and it just lifted right off, and it had a litho. So anytime you see anything, do we have an example of a litho? Do you have one?
I think this is.
Anytime you see,
let's spotlight us.
Anytime you see a graphic that's too detailed,
is it this?
It could be. That feels more like a decal to me.
But it could be. It's definitely printed, and it's a thin little pin.
Okay, that's probably it. I think of it more with photograph pins. Like if you see a pin with a photograph. Oh, I had that Walt one here somewhere.
I have a photograph pin here. This type that has a picture of the castle.
Yeah. So when the detail is such that it can't be hand enameled, they will generally print like a magazine, a thin magazine page, a litho, and apply that so that has a cutout. That castle picture is on a cutout with a thin dome enamel on it, and then it's set into the void where normally it would be an enameled image or something.
Oh, how interesting. And it does have the epoxy dome all over the top of it.
And I think that's done prior to putting it into the pin. So
Oh.
that insert, that litho insert of the castle is, probably punched out in advance. Maybe, and it could be printed right onto a white base of enamel on there. Um, does anybody have any pins like that they're curious about?
Are you looking? This is a type of pin that I'm going to show another one. I don't think this is printed. I think it's enamel, but I can't really totally tell. Can you spot my name? The old white glove, is this
Yes.
enamel?
Yeah. So that I think is actually copper based, enameled and then domed. And it may have just been that the client Amex liked how that looked.
Oh. And
it does say firing, so it's probably a cost savings. And they made 400 million of that pin.
it does have the typical like waffle pattern back, and it does weigh more.
And does it have a tack? It's not a built-in tack like they do
No,
now.
it's the typical glued-on tack with a barb.
Right. So the tacks are either super glued on or soldered on. They used to be soldered on to the base metal copper, but you can see with this guy that
Yeah.
the head of that tack is part of the mold, and they set the tack down into the mold, and then they fill the mold around it with the molten metal in the vulcanized rubber mold. Did anybody did we talk about how it's made?
No, we didn't.
So how it's made's got a great video on how pins are made, and it's the more common way of making them now. I think that they've probably stopped, for the most part, even hand enameling them, because I've seen robotic, video of the enamel being squirted in, like with Wizard Pins or whoever, different pin manufacturers are now popping up in my Facebook.
I'm gonna show you two more. And
okay.
What do you think of these? They're very thin, little, lightweight, shiny metal pins. Are these litho?
I would say the ticket is. Let's get you spot. Are you spotlight?
Yes. You can try unspotlighting and respotlighting, because then maybe he'll see it. Is that better?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Yeah, so that looks like the ticket is a litho with an epoxy dome.
Okay.
On brass, right? Thin metal.
Yes, and it's very thin and just very plain on the back.
Oh, but it is plated.
Yes.
So that would have been plated after the fact.
It's very shiny. Oh, how interesting. And its tack looks like it was more or less glued on.
It was probably either super glued or soldered on. I don't know if you can solder on brass, so it may have been just super glued on. And then the electroplating, I would look up electroplating too, although it may have been in that video. I can't remember now. And there's probably more than one video now. But the electroplating is like an electrochemical process where they wire them up, lower them into a vat, and current runs through the copper wire that they're wired up to. And current flows through just like Christmas lights or, whatever, through each pin, through that wire. And they put nickel nuggets into the vat. And then as the current flows, like an electromagnet, you've seen where the magnetic crane thing comes down and picks up car parts with magnetic force. That's basically what it is. pulling the the at an atomic level the metal particles from the nickel nuggets onto the exposed copper, where there's so anywhere there's enamel, current won't flow through it. So the nickel particles stick to the exposed metal and fuse electromagically onto the
Wow.
exposed
And
metal.
don't touch the enamel.
Sorry.
And they don't touch the enamel.
Correct. It won't.
That's cool.
Yep.
So if the enamel pops out of your pin and breaks out, you would basically have you'd have exposed unplated metal then underneath. If you broke your pin.
Typically with epoxy, yes. With cloisonne, the glass or the silica is fused to the copper, so it doesn't often do that. It doesn't often get down to the base metal. You got to really work at it. Yeah, I think I've put away everything. Let me see what's in here. Here's a bin of stuff. Let's see what's in it. All right. Well, here's a litho.
Oh yes,
Walt.
That's a nice pin.
And the red enamel is soft enamel. It's a pin on pin, beveled edge. So it's molded. It's not die struck. And this is from, I had a magnifier. What do I do with it? I thought I put it right here. Hold on. There we go. 2001. That's pretty early for a molded pin.
Wow.
I'm really surprised by that, actually. 2001, yeah.
That was for the Christmas time in the city event or something at Disney, at downtown Disney.
Yeah, very early molded instead of die struck.
So if a die lasts roughly 10,000 pins, do the molds have a certain lifetime that they just, they make so long, or is that how it's easy for the scrapper pins?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I wish I did.
That'll give us something to look up.
I was super obsessed with how the pins were made when I first got into it. And here's another. This is from 2001, because the Disney stores gave these out, and that is not only molded, it's kind of got that sculpt, which we've also talked about. And it looks like, no, they had to attach this. This has a little hammer for the bell. Hold on, let me get it. I'm trying to get it to lay right. There it goes. And it looks like they molded the loop into the bell and then closed it around that extra piece.
Oh. Wow.
But these were out after 9/11 in the Disney stores. They were just handing them out. Here, have a pin. Can you believe it?
That's pretty cool. They're really cute pins.
Here's a domed enamel. Here's acid etched. So this is an early acid etched home video. So when they made this pin, the graphics were black like a Xerox, and then they gave it an acid bath and it etched out where you see color, and then they washed off the black. That's kind of a important point I think I've been leaving out, to leave the exposed metal, and then they put a dollop, and the epoxy apparently is just dolloped onto it, like pouring syrup onto pancakes. And then they go around the edge with a toothpick and just clean off the excess around it and let it lay flat and puddle and pool, and then when it's hardened, and I think all it does is cure on its own. I don't think it has to be baked or anything.
Are the acid etched always on brass?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't
Okay,
know of any others. So, I mean, I can't.
I have a question here because I've got a home video pin and I'm going to show it to you because I think what it is with what you're saying, I'm going to show it to you. It's got, can you spotlight me? Okay. The back is this type of texture, see? But very,
Uh-huh.
very thin pin. But wait,
Yeah, that's the exact same back as this one.
okay. Well, if you look at the pin, I think to make his brown, he looks like they left the metal unfilled. Is he copper?
I can't see it well enough to know. Let me look. I'll look on Pinpicks and see what I can
Okay,
see.
because that's really interesting if he's acid etched or not, because it's almost like his what's brown on him is unfilled, but he's completely filled with epoxy, which kind of gives him a multi-dimensional look because he's so I mean he looks like he might be metal. How interesting.
All right. So that looks like it's clear, kind of like the um
You can spell him.
that is clear enamel like on the paint jars.
Oh, okay.
So what you're seeing is the base metal.
What a cool effect.
Yeah.
Like I've never really paid attention to this pin, but that really is a cool effect.
Yep. And it's interesting because now the pins are so intricate and so detailed and so big.
How about showing off a 3D sculpted like one of the new maps or something, and we could tell them the cool thing about how those are made.
Okay. Do you have one or do I need to get one?
I have a couple here.
Okay.
And one's even a map pen.
Oh, the map pins.
Yeah.
I feel like I got something around here.
You look, and in the meantime, I'm gonna assist spotlighted this, so I'm gonna show this. So last D23, all they released all those storybook map pins, and actually a lot of the pins released at D23 are basically sculpted, and you can see from the side how thick they are. And they're what is just termed 3D sculpted because you can feel the designs. There's really nothing flat on them at all.
Is
And
that the Frozen Castle?
this is the Frozen Castle.
Because Lizzie had to have that.
Lizzie had to have that, right? This is our one and only map pin, actually, so far. But the map pins are a very matte finish. You can kind of see in the picture, they don't glint at all. And they feel like, what do they feel like? I'm trying to think because it's very matte. Very matte finish. It's a really neat feeling pin. But if you are
Well, they feel a little like porcelain, which is why who was it that thought they were all porcelain?
yeah, a number of people were saying that these were porcelain pins when they came out, but they're not. And if you make noise, they have a very dull, they sound less metal and more porcelain when you
can you drop it on a table? Just an inch or two on a.
I don't have wood any. No, I don't have a table, but it would sound very. It sounds like dropping more of a little knob or something like this. And what's really interesting is Sis and I took one of these. They started making these, not the map pin, not the map pin. We took one of these, a Marvel pin, and we took her Army K-bar knife to it because we wanted to find out, was this painted or was the decal very sturdy? That Army K-bar knife could not even scratch the pin. We couldn't even tell that we had done anything to it, and we were really doing something to it. But the way the printing is on there is absolutely amazing because honestly,
you didn't do it to that pin, did you?
No. We did it to a Marvel pin that we didn't particularly care about. Sis
right.
really cared about this pin.
Now I have to do it to one.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Okay, here's a metal tray, and I'm gonna drop the pin onto it, and you can hear it. It's very substantial.
And is that ring coming from the tray or from the pin?
The pin will actually make that noise, and then I'm gonna bang the pin to another pin. Not so hard. I didn't. It sounds very.
Don't do it on the face of it.
Well, that's where it's sculpted. The back is just plated like normal.
Yeah.
Plus, you cannot tell. Literally, I'm telling you, these are really, really interesting how they're done. And these came out in 2020. The first one that really came out like this was a little mystery set of Animators Princesses. And when that came out, it was a complete and total fizzle flop because everyone was like, oh, those don't look right. And we didn't know anyone who even wanted one of those princesses. But then by the time the second box set came out, they were really picking up a little bit. But it took forever to find out how they're made. So why don't you tell them what you found out about how these are made?
Well, so I was at the D23. I don't want to call it an event because it was basically the Coronado Springs.
It was a pop-up. I think it's called a pop-up event.
Yeah. And basically what it is they sell all the stuff they couldn't sell is how it looked to the cast members or at the, because it's Mickey's of Glendale. But they had a bunch of Imagineer Sorcerer Mickeys as far as pins go, but mostly they had like clothing, hats, stuff. And so I did have the good thing about it was I had the opportunity to talk to one of the guys that runs it. And I asked him about it. And he told me that it is laser printed onto the sculpted pin. And I asked, is there a base of white enamel? And he said sometimes, but they just print it on there, and then they put a layer of clear coat, some kind of coating on it that seals it and protects it, and apparently protects it pretty well.
It does protect it pretty well, definitely. Which Sissy's just putting in an interesting thing. It means there's no enamel on this pin. So you basically have a metal pin with this printed layer that's almost it's thick enough that if you turn the pin to the side, you can see the printed layer. It's like a layer of on its own.
We have microscopic imaging of that we used.
Yes, we're going to try and put up a little video on YouTube that really shows some of these because they can do some really cool effects with these pins. They're very, very neat. They're different. And
you reminded me, I've got to get all those animator dolls now and that.
They're really, really cute. I still have the Moana. The Moana? Yeah. I'm going to show another pin that I thought was interesting because it's old. It's from 2000 and has the 2000 back, but this is kind of a rare one because it's soft enamel with an epoxy dome in there, which is really different. I mean, I don't think you see too many of the Disney pins like that.
So Disneyland had done a similar design with 12, they did a pin of the month. And the first one's like Mickey's portrait that I think is in City Hall or maybe Walt's apartment or something. And and the frame was attached to it. This one, I think they went the way they did with this because I think they wanted to enamel it. But I think that's probably another early example of that laser printing. I don't know if we did laser printing in 2000, but
laser printing,
and not that one. The pin of the month I'm talking about from 2000.
Okay. The Mickey.
Yeah. Anyway, the frame was attached. With this, they didn't attach the frame. They just, I think, sculpted the whole thing, including the void where the enamel was, filled, and then an epoxy dome on top of that.
Yeah, it feels like one solid piece. And what's interesting is that epoxy dome definitely yellowed, because you can tell on I think it's the Evil Queen in this set. She definitely yellowed. One of them is
I
particular.
don't think there's an Evil Queen in that set. I think
No,
there's
you're right.
well, they did a Haunted Mansion one, but then they did I want to say Chernabog,
Yes,
the Hag,
it's Chernabog,
Maleficent, and maybe one more that is not occurring to me.
Okay, so another example, and I know you can talk about these, but Sis and I want you to mention this. Okay, so the effect for the paint pots that creates this shimmery look. Can we say anything?
What a lot of people are calling glitter. I think that is the base metal and with clear enamel. Or transparent. I don't know. Is something tinted still transparent or clear?
Yeah, it's colored. Yeah.
So yeah,
but it's like you can see down through the enamel, but it's almost like they colored the base metal, but it's not glitter.
no, they didn't color the base metal. It's just as if you had, a piece of colored glass, and you held it in front of a piece of metal that has a rough texture to it.
Got it.
You shined a bright light on it, the textured metal would reflect with a glittery effect through the colored glass.
Got it. Ooh.
So that's just colored enamel. That's the only difference.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, this is a really cool effect because it's shimmery without being glitter.
Right.
Which is really, really pretty neat. What about, wait a minute, I have another example of, if we're going to talk about the typing of need. Okay. So you mentioned something last time that really struck Sis and me. I've got this little Loungefly pin. And I think it's going to be spin casting because I don't know if it's going to show. It has, like, you can tell that it's got an indentation on the side here and an indentation over here that was almost connected to something. Why is that where they were connected to their little mold? Can you see that there?
Pull it back just a skosh. And then back in.
It's like right there.
Oh, okay.
And it's like a full indentation and we noticed a lot of the Loungefly pins seem to have this. It's almost like they were ripped off of something and then plated.
Huh. Well, we talked about model pieces.
Yeah.
How they are on a grid and then you break them off. That's how pins are molded. So maybe that's what that is.
Okay.
Where it broke off of what do they call those? There's a word for those channels that lead up to the actual piece where injection molding material goes through the mold to get to the piece that you want to break out of the grid. I thought there was a name for it, but I can't remember it.
Okay.
This is I do have these handy. These are molded, they're unfilled. These were their chasers.
Oh,
there we go. And the filled pin probably looked almost exactly like this, except for probably places where you see like the teeth, they could have been filled with white. I don't know. I don't have the pin here.
So basically every pin looks like that at one stage in its life.
And the difference in litho and screen printing or stamping is uh, they either use a rubber stamp to stamp the enamel or ink, whatever that is, onto the blank surface. So you can tell here that there was a yellow stamp. It could be a silk screen like they do t-shirts. I was told they were screen printed, so that could be that as well. But if you watch that how it's made video, you'll see that they stamp on the details with a rubber, and I have seen that done on other pins. So that could be it. So this pin is a white Mickey head when it's being made, and then the other graphics are screen printed or stamped onto it. There's yellow around the edges, the outline of the Mickey head. There's yellow in his face there. So there's several different stamps, white for the lettering on the blue field. So that's a completely blue field of enamel. There's no fill there. Everything else is stamped on. And it must be pretty thick because it's super highly detailed. And no blue shows through.
You're right. How interesting. I don't often pay attention to the enamel dome pins, so it's cool to kind of pay attention to them.
Oh, here, maybe go ahead. Haha, here we go. So there's a unfilled chaser and then a filled chaser.
It's amazing what that enamel does for the pin, isn't it?
And then this is plated with gold, and this is not.
How cool. So, wow.
I'm trying to see if there's any difference in yeah, they probably use the same mold for these, because it doesn't look like there's anything plated that is on this one that's filled on this one, or vice versa.
Okay. What about, I'm going to toss an old one at you. We've got a Sedesma pin, a very old little Sedesma pin. Obviously, it's almost like soft enamel paint because it's barely got color in that black. But why? Oh, yes, it's going to show. Why is there a line down the back?
That would be a seam in the mold.
Would every pin of this design have had that, or is that just where this pin hit? Every pin?
Yes.
Okay. So
and all the Sedesmas had that.
Oh, okay. This is our only Sedesma, and we really wondered about that pin. Cheap backs. Cheap backs.
Oh, here's another litho with I should have come to rehearsal.
Oh, yep. Okay. Fantastic. Oh, that's a neat one.
And then it's on a brass base. So that would have been printed maybe like a sticker anyway on a thin piece of paper, like a magazine page, super thin, but has highly detailed printing, and then stuck onto the base metal and then covered with an epoxy dome.
So that's probably a very fast way to create a pin versus manufacturing.
I agree.
Okay.
Now this guy, this is a pretty new pin. This is, I don't know where this is from. Friends of the Other Side. so much detail in this pin.
Oh.
And when they made my original scoop pin, I learned that every little void that gets filled has a cost to it. So look at all those voids divided. Anywhere you see a metal line dividing, creating space to be filled with enamel, that's a void. And look at all the voids on there.
That does have a lot.
And I was told it costs a nickel. I can't imagine them doing that because these are, now there is screening on here. There's the words on the label.
Oh.
And then there's some detail work in the borders of the cards.
The screen printing these days is also real common on like faces. Minnie and Mickey will be all enamel and then their little faces will be printed.
More commonly now, yeah. It used to be they would, like for pupils, they would just leave it metal.
Okay, so here I'm going to show you another one because we have something that's gone wrong on this pin. Okay, so this is not a very old pin, definitely a printed picture pin, but can we see? I'm going to pull it off because look at, I don't know how to hold it against the black and get it sideways. It's peeling up. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
But it's hard as a rock.
How do you mean?
What happened?
How do you mean it's hard as a rock?
The part that's peeling up, you can't bend it, but you can see to the metal, but it's almost like you would think it was paper peeling up, but it is like you can't move it.
It's enamel. It's epoxy enamel. It's very tough. It's why they make pins that way now.
So it's stuck. The epoxy stuck to the printed epoxy. Oh, okay. That makes sense because we've had this and we've been like, "Oh, what is this?" You can spotlight him.
I did find an example of a pin where the pupils are metal. See?
Oh, and that when you photograph them, that can make them look funny sometimes because the pupils will photograph so light or dark.
Right. Well, if the light's reflecting off it, it's going to look gold. In this case.
It's going to be too little to show.
Oh, that's smart, Mario. Mario said he heats them up with a hairdryer and you know what I had tried was, I have a nonstick oven and I put it on, put some paper on it and then kind of rubbed it on there to mash it down in. And I forget what kind of luck I had with that. But I'm excited to hear that, Mario, because I want to try that too. So hairdryer worked, huh?
We're going to definitely try that on ours then.
Can Mario tell us more about that?
Yeah, you can unmute, Mario. Feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I heat it up with the hair dryer and then apply pressure, and then I'll wrap it with put some cellophane, the plastic wrap,
right,
and then tape it so that it stays for a while. Then
yeah,
I'll leave it like that for a couple of days and then take it off. Right, it's tricky to try to get the glue if you try to get glue in there without getting it anywhere else.
So do you try to get glue in there or do you just heat it up and try to melt it in? Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
Oh, we're gonna try it then, and we'll take some before, during, and after photos and report back.
Just wear gloves or something so you just don't put too much heat on it. But
right, it will discolor it if it burns it.
Well, the good thing is we'll consider this an experiment. If we fail, we'll tell people what not to do.
Righto.
We'll give this a shot. Okay, I'm so glad Sis remembered this pin because we've had this in it was in the trader book. And then when she pulled it out and it looked like this, we were like, okay, shouldn't be in the trader book. So it's been in limbo.
Yeah. I have a Cruella crystal ball hidden Mickey pin that the enamel just popped out, and I had saved it for tonight, but I have no idea where it is now.
Well, we'll have another evening. You've done a great job. Do you want to let people ask some questions in case anyone has questions?
Absolutely.
We don't want to keep you super late since you've got a big day.
I appreciate that.
No
But-
worries.
Night night, everybody.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Holland.
Thanks
Night,
so much for
Holland. Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you, Toots. Take care.
Thanks everybody for coming. We are going to schedule another one of these. We'll announce it because we'll figure out with Holland when it is. We're actually going to call it a night since there's a meeting tomorrow, the PinPix meeting, and we will see everybody there. And thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate it. We've been looking forward to
Tomorrow-
this.